we're heading into week 2 OTAs. I mean, week 1, plenty to take away. I thought it was an impressive week. I think in weeks past or in years past, week 1, you're looking at, Kenny Pickett and George Pickens being the most dominant things on a football field. Najee Harris walking in here looking like Derrick Henry. This year, he kind of looks like, I don't know, like maybe a skinny Derrick Henry. I couldn't tell you. Couldn't come up with a name there. We're heading into week 2, OTAs. What are you looking for? What's on the top of your list when you get back to the South Side?
Yeah, kind of assuming that Cam Hayward doesn't make some dramatic appearance and show up out of nowhere. I'm looking at the defensive line a little bit, and I think particularly DeMarvin Leal. It's a guy who looks a little bit thinner, at least in his upper body.
Yes.
Not thinner, but,
I agree.
a little bit slimmed down in his upper body than he was last year, which is just interesting because I think they're thinking about bumping him on the inside a little bit more, play more of that defensive end role that Cam Hayward did. And he's got some competition there. You see him working with, it's a little bit of a different position, but Keanu Benton, Montravius Adams working at that spot too. Like, I think of those guys as different players from Leal, but they're really trying to find a role for him in this defense. And, if they can't relatively soon, I'm not sure if they're ever going to.
Yeah.
And then it's maybe time to start thinking about, okay, how do we move on from DeMarvin? But he's going to get his chance to they've given him a lot of leash. Yeah. They're really working hard to try to find a role for him in this defense. I think he's got talent and I think he's got athleticism. So I think, there's a rollout for him out in the NFL somewhere. I'm not sure if it's in Pittsburgh, but we're really going to find out. And I'm just interested to see how he keeps progressing and how they try to use him and how they try to coach him up and keep him involved.
Yeah, I like that. I think DeMarvin is, he said it the other day to, I want to say, Chris Carter, maybe it was Ray Fittipaldo. I don't remember who it was, but it was somebody saying that this is year 3. It's make or break. He's got to put it all out there. He understands that he hasn't lived up to the expectations. I think it's all true. Like, I agree with you. I think he looks leaner, whereas in last year it was concerning. Kind of looks a little bit out of shape when he showed up to training camp. I think that DeMarvin has so much upside, and I'm worried that he's going to waste it because he's just not going to work out in Pittsburgh. And that would stink because just like I said, I think he could be a really quality football player in the NFL. Like, I think he's got that type of talent. He just hasn't put it together. I am interested to see it, especially because, just like you said, like Dean Lowry showed up the last day of OTAs last week. It was nice to see him on the field. You got Logan Lee, who's starting to work his way out there, who's also impressive. Isaiah Loudermilk looks bigger, which I don't know how that's possible. But that guy, I watched him walk off the field the other day, and he must have been tensed up or something. But I was like, damn, dude, that tricep muscle's massive. Like, that's scary looking tricep muscle. I think that he's got a lot of competition, but I would like to see it work out for him because I think he's got that upside. Like, I think he's got more upside than anybody else in that group. And if he could put it together, I agree. I think that's a big name. I got 2 things that I'm looking for. One of them is on the defensive side of the football. Obviously, Darius Rush kind of lit up week 1. I want to see that continue, or if it does continue, is Darius Rush a name? Because I think, cool, you have one good week. Awesome. But like last year, Hakeem Butler had a couple of good days, didn't have a good week, didn't put it together. And I get he tearing up the UFL. He's just a UFL guy, but couldn't make it work long term. And I want Darius Rush to make it work long term. I think he's got the potential. I think he's got the size. I think he's got the speed and the upside. Like, people look at him and they rave about like, oh, this guy's big. Like, he looks like another Joey Porter. You forget he's a 4.3 guy. Like, he's a 4.3 speed guy. This guy's got the athleticism to make this work. He's got all the talent. He's only a couple of years into playing corner. When he went to college, he was a wide receiver. So to make that transition, to still be somewhat raw at it, I would like to see Darius Rush continue to evolve, take another step forward, impress people more so that we could kind of pinpoint him as, this time of year you're starting to pick. I said it to you. I've been naming just like anybody who does anything. I'm like, all right, that's my guy this year. That's my guy this year. This is the time of year where you pick those, those Elijah Rileys, where it's like,
yep,
dude, that this guy's going to be good. He's got the potential. He's been showing it. A couple years ago it was George Pickens. It was immediately, George Pickens looks phenomenal. You can't ignore this kid. It's ridiculous. Jaylen Warren was another one. I would like Darius Rush to be that guy. I think he's got the potential to be that guy. I want to see it in week 2. I want to see him continue to do that. The other side of the football, to be honest, I want to see more of the other guys. Like, we saw a lot of Van Jefferson, and I don't think he was impressed with Van Jefferson. Scotty Miller had a couple of good catches. Quez Watkins did a little bit here, a little bit there. I want to see Des Fitzpatrick. I want to see Denzel Mims. I want to see Marquez Callaway. Like, I want to see what these guys could bring to the field as well. I want to see them get an opportunity. I thought Des Fitzpatrick, he was very impressive last summer. And when so impressive, he made the 53-man roster at one point during the year. It didn't hold because he's not that great at special teams, but if he could work his way in there, Denzel Mims is a former second round pick. Like, I just think these guys have potential. I would like to see them kind of get an opportunity here in week 2 so that we could kind of get more eyes on them. See if this is real options, if they are real options for the Pittsburgh Steelers with the other group of guys.
Yeah, I think you make a great point about Darius Rush. I mean, watching him last week, it was almost surprising that a guy who did get drafted, who was a part of a. I mean, he was in a Chiefs defense that was really deep. He had a bunch of guys in front of him, so I sort of understand that way. But man, how did this guy not get a look last year when the Steelers were really struggling for defensive backs and there were so many injuries? But even the guys out there didn't look too hot. Like, kind of surprised that Darius Rush didn't get an opportunity last year. Really hope he gets an opportunity this year. It seems like he is certainly earning one, at least through week 1. So I'm with you there. Interested to see what he does as a follow-up. And I like what you said about the offense too. Like Des Fitzpatrick, I think you were spot on. He was really, really good during training camp last year. How much is he able to put it together? Does another year of experience really help him out that much? And this is like a little bit like Rush. All these receivers are in just a wide open competition, man. Yep. So it's who's going to take advantage, who's going to be the one to actually step up and say, this is my job. You don't need to sign another guy. I'm capable of doing this. I'm capable of working in this offense and being a starter. Because, like you said, there were some guys who showed some impressive things, but not a whole lot of big time playmaking. Not a whole lot of, this guy, like no one stood out from the receivers room in the same way that Darius Rush did in the cornerbacks room. So I think you're looking for someone to really, like, even George Pickens, I didn't think was, and they were limited in what they were doing, obviously, but George Pickens didn't dominate either. So I think we're still looking for that first receiver, that pass catcher who's going to really dominate.
Yeah, I agree. And I expect George to, I think at some point, because I was thinking the same thing. Like, we were watching practice, especially team drills and stuff, and we can't really give away what's going on in team drills, but you're watching team drills and you're like, all right, like where's George? What's George doing? But I also don't think that if I had to guess, Arthur Smith's going, I don't care how open George Pickens is. You find.
I know what
else.
George can do.
Yeah. Like George, we're not looking for a number George. We're looking for a number 2. So we got to go find those. Go find somebody else. And I think Russ fully understands that that's what he's got to do here. But I agree. I don't think anybody in the wide receiver room has really taken over to the point where you're like, oh, okay, that was impressive. And I think it's time in week 2 to start to see that. Otherwise, I think the concern or the urgency to go get somebody kind of continues to grow. We'll see. We head back to the South Side tomorrow. We'll be there Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then it is week 3, final week of OTAs, first week of minicamp coming up. Plenty of action, plenty of news. Make sure to find it all here at All Steelers Talk.